Hello, viewers, and thank you so much. Once again, this is Costa with you on the Big Talk. And we know for a fact that the Constitution Amendment Act number 3 is now law. It has been signed into law by the president. And the question is, what's next? I sit down today with one of our academic gurus, a labor activist, human rights defender, and one of the respectable voices that Zimbabwe has witnessed since the turn of the new millennium in the opposition circles, CD, Comrade Munya Gwisai. I want to welcome you, Comrade, and give you an opportunity to meet and talk to our viewers.
Thank you, Comrade Costa. Thank you for this opportunity, and good day and greetings. Kwazwai Salewonani to your viewers.
Fantastic. So you were one of the voices that were so much opposed passionately about the Constitution Amendment Act number 3. The president signed it into law. It has been gazetted. It's water under bridge now. What's next for Zimbabwe?
Oh, thank you. Yes, we have played a leading role in this matter as members of the Defend the Constitution platform, which is convened by Senator Timber. I'm also a leader of the International Socialist Organization, as well as Vashandi Zisebenzi, Working People's Collective. These are working class based movements and revolutionary movements that are part of the struggle for democracy, but also against exploitation and zara, poverty of the ordinary people. So yes, we are part of that. And recently we established the Ubumbano, Sungano Revanu, Umjajate Avantu People's Coalition, which has brought together the major groups that were fighting CAP 3, the Constitution Amendment number 3 bill, now the Constitution Amendment number 3 Act. So that is the DCP ourselves, as well as the CDF convened by Tendai Biti, National Constitutional Assembly led by Professor Maduku, as well as sections from labor, the church, and civic groups, Zikomo, and others. So we've now created a united voice for fighting the mutilation and the massacre of the Constitution. In fact, we are clear that what happened on 7 July, when President Mnangagwa signed into law CAA, it's a constitutional coup, where a small group of people have usurped the power and sovereignty of the people. You say that it's over because he signed. No. I hear this talk that it's a done deal. No, that's not a done deal. You see, if you understand the legislative architecture of this country under the Constitution of 2013, you will see that there are 3 pillars in terms of lawmaking in this country. There's Parliament, the National Assembly, as well as Senate. There is the President. That is for normal, ordinary legislation. But where you are amending certain protected provisions of the Constitution, you also bring in a 3rd pillar. The 3rd pillar are the people of Zimbabwe. Because the 2013 Constitution is very clear that sovereignty, legislative sovereignty, judicial authority lies with the people. So the people have not yet spoken. Parliament has spoken, Mnangagwa has spoken, the people are still to speak. So it's not a done deal.
Yeah, but what do you mean when you say people have not spoken? When they were given an opportunity to air their views during the public hearings that you witnessed going around the country?
Yes, the charade of, I think you would have seen in Harare and Chitungwiza and Bulawayo, the charade of consultations. But what I mean is that Section 328, subsection 7, subsection 1 of the Constitution is very clear that if you are going to amend a provision of the Constitution in which the incumbent will extend their term, as has happened with CAA 3, where the term of the president has been extended to 2030, where the term of parliament has been extended to 2030, of municipal leaders has been extended to 2030. The Constitution in subsection 7 of section 328 is very clear that you must have a national referendum. In other words, once Parliament has passed the constitutional bill by 2/3 majority, as it has done, they are still required within 3 months of the period of passage of that bill to take it to national referendum for the people to speak. So they have not done that. So they've clearly committed an illegality. Their actions at law, we say, are a nullity or void ab initio. They stand on nothing. As well, the Constitution also says that, that same section 328, is that if you're going to amend the Bill of Rights, you also must ensure that the issue goes to national referendum. Now, one of the provisions of the Bill of Rights that has been amended by CAA 3 is the right of one woman, one man, one vote. Section 67 of the Constitution provides what are called political rights. And one of the political rights is that citizens have the right to elect their leaders. So if you have a provision like CAA 3, which has now taken the right of citizens to elect their president, and so you are talking of over 7 million citizens, that is adult citizens, their right to elect their president has been taken away, has been reposed in less than 300 people in parliament. So that's a direct amendment of section 67 of the Constitution. And by virtue of that, it means that the parliament and the president were required to have gone to a national referendum. Now that they've not done that, it therefore means, and that is part of what we are now doing, as Sungano, Ubumbano, as well as various other groups. We've seen the Zimbabwe Christian Council, the Catholic bishops, they are all speaking with one voice. We demand a national referendum as put by the Constitution. We therefore, as far as we are concerned, CAB 3 remains CAB 3.
The president is a lawyer. He always says so. The Minister of Justice is obviously a lawyer again. There's the AG's office. All these figures were involved in crafting the K3, and they have argued and maintained that there is no violation to the process of the amendment of this law. There is no anywhere in that amendment where the referendum is required. And even after all, if you are going to argue that the right of the citizens is being taken away for them not to elect the president, they say parliamentarians would have been elected by the citizens themselves, and therefore they can still vote on their behalf. What is your response to that?
Thank you. That is not people's sovereignty. People's sovereignty means people exercising their rights directly in the form of a referendum, or directly in the form of Section 59 of the Constitution, the right to protest and demonstrate. Those are the powers that are given by the Constitution to citizens. So they have denied the people the national referendum, but the people shall exercise, the people shall speak through Section 59. So at Sungano, at Umbano, we've made it clear that we have started a campaign called the Restore the Constitution campaign, based on 2 pillars. The first pillar is that we, constituent organizations to us, we filed over 3 constitutional applications that are pending now before the Constitutional Court. And we've also launched and are supporting a mass campaign in terms of mass action, mass protests, civil disobedience in terms of Section 59. You refer to the President, Minister Ziambi. Look, with due respect, the President on 17 February 2025, after the ZANU-PF conference in Bulawayo in October, had passed what they called Resolution Number 1, which sought to extend the tenure of the President to 2030. President Mnangagwa himself came out to the nation before the editors of public and private media and said that he was a constitutionalist. And as a constitutionalist, he understood that his term was ending in 2028 and would respect that. He repeated the same thing in Beijing, even harassed the young woman who was asking her that this was not going to happen. So he knows. But not just that. At the ZANU-PF conference, the ZANU-PF legal guru, Patrick Chinamasa, explained exactly what I've explained to you. Before the ZANU-PF, he says, yes, you can amend. But you've got to go through two processes. Because to do what they've done requires, in fact, two referendums, two constitutional bills. So this was explained to Chinamasa. And for telling the truth, and Chinamasa says he spoke to Mnangagwa more than 3 times. And he was told the same thing. So they know the truth. This is just hunger for power, my friends. We've heard these stories, whether it's Museveni in Uganda, whether it's Kagame in Rwanda, that's what they do. But the law is clear. The law profession, the body that brings together lawyers in this country, in fact, also wrote a submission to Parliament as part of the consultations. And if you look at their report, it's completely inconsistent with what I've said, that the law is not like that. But ultimately, if truly Mnangagwa Ziyambi and Virginia Mabiza, the Attorney General, were confident about their position, what they should have done, the Constitution is clear. After Parliament had passed the CAP 3 and brought it to the President has an option in terms of the Constitution to take the same bill to the Constitutional Court and ask for an opinion from the Constitutional Court in terms. He didn't do that, but that's the option that is there. But that is what we are now doing. As I said, there are now 7 Constitutional Court applications. And as I already said to you, that is not a done deal. Section 162 of the Constitution of the country says that the judicial authority of Zimbabwe is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. So we have gone to the Constitutional Court for it to hear. We are also going to be going into the streets. We are going to be having civic education, protests, national stairways, so that the Constitutional Court judges can also hear that the people of Zimbabwe are not happy.
But at what point did you start having confidence with the courts, given what your colleagues have consistently said, that the courts, the judiciary is captured in this country? How do you expect it to rule otherwise, adjudicate otherwise in this matter?
It is for them to decide how they will go. It will be for their conscience. It will be for their own integrity. Even in Rhodesia, where you had captured judiciary, judges, if you look what is called the Mazimbamuto decision, faced with that fundamental decision, were able to say no. So the judges of the Constitutional Court are now faced with this. It's up to them to take whatever position they will take. But what must be clear is that, as I've explained to you, judicial authority is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. It is not derived from Mnangagwa. It is not derived from Mudenda. It is not derived from Parliament. It is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. They took an oath to uphold the Constitution. And a fundamental principle of this Constitution is sovereignty of the people. Now, one of the reasons why, therefore, you ask a good question, our campaign is not just based on that pillar. The main pillar, in fact, of our campaign are the people. That is why, as Sungano, as Umbano, we have called and have endorsed the 31st July protests, national stairway, and beyond that, we'll also be organizing national protests, national petitions, and we are happy to hear that the voice of the church has just come out. The Zimbabwe Christian Council, the Catholic bishops have also said the same thing. So yes, it's up to the Constitutional Court to do as it will. History will judge it appropriately.
Let's go to the people that you are banking on so much right now. We know the response that the state has been giving to those who would be even protesters those who wouldn't even have protested, but threatened to protest. And we know the response. What is going to change now? How are you going to motivate the citizens who appear to have been cowed now by the responses and even the messages from both ZANU-PF and the government to say, if you dare demonstrate, we heard what the Home Affairs Minister Kazembe Kazembe said, that the 31 July is going to be a normal day. How are you going to motivate the citizens to come out into the streets to protest?
We have put up we've put out our message. We see it's a message, whether it's on social media, social WhatsApp groups, that has resonance with the mood of the people. Why do we have confidence? We have confidence because vanhu vari kutambura munyika muno. This country now, over 49% of the people live in what is called extreme poverty. By extreme poverty, they live on less than $3 a day. That might, in fact, it's 49% to about 60%, depending on what you're talking about. That, my friend, is in excess of 7-8 million people who cannot live and survive. That figure has risen. In the 1990s, that figure was 8%. Now it's nearly 50%. Zimbabwe has become the 8th most unequal country in the world. In the world. What it means is that there is a small clique of people, politicians, business oligarchs, vanonzi zvigananda, vari kudya rifa renyika kutoshaya kuti vodii mari kuti nhasi ndiwe costa ndiwe bhabha wangu unotora Mercedes Benz ukomfana nhasi million yawandisa mari. So our youth, I'm a teacher at the university, 60-70% of our graduates who are doing law are unemployed. Taxation, vari kutexa nyika in a way that reminds us of Sisu John Rhodes. So people are angry. Don't underestimate. When Mnangagwa's government came into power, Mutuli said that he was introducing what was called the TSP, Transitional Stabilization Program,
yes,
for 2 years. That is austerity for 2 years. Then after that, Muchanakiro. It has become a permanent program of austerity and a permanent program of looting by the chefs and leaders of, and not even all of ZANU-PF, of a section of ZANU-PF. So for those reasons, we have confidence, and the real reason why Card 3 has been put is to protect that looting, to ensure that that looting continues for decades. So for that reason, we have the confidence that the people of Zimbabwe, the workers of Zimbabwe, the youth of Zimbabwe are going to come out. Of course, it might not be a one-day event. It is going to happen until victory is done. And finally, we have confidence from the people of this country. Kana Smith chaye akaita imwe coup, handitati avaita coup seakaitwa naSmith yeUDI. Smith had not in 1,000 years. He had the second most powerful army in Africa. But in less than 4 years, we were declaring independence, Muswa 18 April. So nothing will be different.
I'm asking this, Comrade Gwisai, because we know that in this country, protests haven't really yielded anything apart from the one that you are referring to, the 2017 Operation Restore Legacy, which some call, obviously, it was the military-assisted coup in some circles. The question is, we have seen even the Geza called protests not materializing into anything, turning into flash demonstrations, partially some stayaways and so forth. So this is why I'm insisting in terms of how someone who is listening to you speaking is going to be motivated enough to say, I am going to go into the streets, I am going to exercise my right provided by Section 59 of the Constitution.
Yes, let's look into the example you give, Geza. Geza called for action. Muswa 31 March 2025 in protest against resolution number 1 yanga yapaswa kunonzi conference yezanu. He called them in January, and it was clear the mood in the country. It is that which forced Mnangagwa to convene the emergency press conference yakazoconvena musi wa17 February, where he announced that that he was going to respect the constitution. So, and nothing happened until October. The reason why ZANU had to pass resolution number 1 kwechipiri kwamtare was precisely because they had been stopped nana Geza musi waMarch. So to say hazvishandi zvakashandaka, mutungamiri wenyika akateerera. It was only after maGeza revolts azotadza musi wa17 October ndo pakazoitwa zvivindi zveresolution number 1 yazotiunzira izvi ndizvo. Now, and we must salute Geza because he was able to show, iye namawar veterans nevamwe vake vana Comrade Knox, they were able to show kuti fear, we cannot live in fear, that we must be ready to fight for our rights, and it partially worked. But because in many ways hatina kuzojoinana naye ruzhinji, the many of us, his message became blunted. What I am reading now, excuse me, in terms of the mood, I've spoken about church, labor, civic groups were all converging in a movement even more powerful than 1 year Geza, year 31 March. So that gives us confidence.
Yeah, that brings me to the next question again, which is, the concern is that in as much as you have said you have come together to form Sungano Yevanu, the observation is that the opposition, those who are opposed, it is still disintegrated. You're fighting in silos. And this is what has been happening since the beginning of the K3, before it even materialized into law. That you are fighting in silos, you don't share the same common purpose, and so on. Yes, of course, we see some familiar figures within the Sungano Yevanu. There are also some figures who are missing from that grouping of people who are opposed to the. We can mention the likes of Nelson Chamisa, Douglas Ngonzora, and so forth. We have not seen these faces even saying anything towards the Sungano. So the concern with the general public is also the silos constituting of the opposition itself.
But what I see as convergence, I've seen the convergence of different forces around rejecting this. You mentioned Monzora. Monzora has filed a constitutional court application against CAA, that is MTC, under Monzora. Chamisa, he issued a statement just a few days ago, I think when he was in London, saying that this is not a done deal, which is an improvement. Because initially, indeed, it's true that Chamisa had said there was no constitution to defend, right? But so this kind of statement, I see his lieutenants, like Anasiswa Ostalos, coming up with very radical militant positions. I've mentioned the church in terms of the ZCC, the Catholic bishops. So remember, at the end of the day, just like during the liberation struggle, you might have heard Zandla Zipra, but they converged on an anti-colonial liberation agenda. That is what we're seeing. You have seen elements within the state, the former generals, the generals led by General Muchena, they've also come out very strongly. So what is important is therefore that there's a convergence on a message. ZAPU is not necessarily part of Sungano, but ZAPU has actually made the application for demonstrations on 31 July. So I see the convergence, which was not there before when we started. So I think we are moving forward.
But you looking at the, like I indicated earlier, the response that is always met against those who will be protesting. And do you think the police, given the circumstances, would give a green light to demonstrations?
Well, let's look, in terms of the law, the right to demonstrate and protest is a constitutionally provided right under Section 59. It says the people have the right to demonstrate and to petition, right? Of course, you can then have legislation that speaks to constitutional provisions or rights. So we have MOPA, the Maintenance of Peace, Order and Peace and Act, isn't it? Which requires that you notify the police and so forth. So the ZAP has done so, and we hope that the police will be thing. But beyond that, in terms of the law, the kind of action that has been called for 31st July, and that we are also calling for beyond 31st July, are national protests. So when you look at MOPA essentially in letter and spirit is there to regulate individual district-based protests. So you apply to the commanding authority, the regulating authority, who is the officer in charge of a district. Then you get, the necessary permission. But where you are dealing with a national protest, MOPA does not regulate that. In other words, where you want to call a protest across the whole country. So because of that, the default position becomes Section 59 of the Constitution. And therefore, even if the police say no, the rejection of that for a national stay away or a national protest would not be lawful. And one can even go further and say, to the extent that MOPA contains intrusive requirements, it might actually be unlawful or unconstitutional in terms of Section 59. But our fundamental position is that for a national protest, at law we call it a lacuna. That is a gap. There's a gap in the law. Yes, there's a gap in the law. In countries like South Africa, the equivalent legislation would also provide for regulation of national protests. Our MOPA does not. And for that, the people have a full right under the Constitution. Yes, people may be arrested, people may be taken to court, but I have every confidence. But I hope that the police will live with that. And I'm just coming from the university where we had a big strike, last year. We actually went to court as well, where the police were saying we don't have the right to picket. And we went to the High Court, and the High Court upheld our right to do so. So I have every confidence that the judiciary, looking at this issue, will do so. But ultimately, because people have this right, the people must have the courage, must have the confidence to come out. In their numbers, victory and success will be certain. And I think the state will be forced to do what it has to do, call for a national referendum.
Comrade Munya, how prepared are you that this protest, you have got overwhelming numbers in a response? How prepared are you in terms of managing it so that it does not maybe get out of hand?
Thank you. A very important question. We want to appeal to the citizens of Zimbabwe, to the people of Zimbabwe, to our youth in particular, that you have a responsibility. You must show that you are different from those who speak with one side and say we are constitutionalists, and then the following morning just go completely opposite. If you, the people of Zimbabwe, are saying that you are defending the Constitution gives you the right to protest, to demonstrate, but the Constitution is very clear. Your demonstrations, your actions must be peaceful. So as you go out, so that's the appeal we're putting out as Sungano, Revanu, Ubumbano, Umjajate Abantu, that let us be peaceful. We are reiterating the message that has been given by the church, that has been given by the trade unions. Remain peaceful. And also, in the exercise of your rights, you must not force others who might not want to participate in your actions, because they also have a constitutional right not to participate. So you must respect the right of those who may not want to be part of your marches, your protests, and your prayers, your section. Let them be. And also, if some don't feel like they want to join don't want to join protests, but they still want their voice to be heard, stay at home, in your communities, in a stay away. Your voice will also be heard, that the people of Zimbabwe have spoken. So let these people speak in their different languages. Vechechi vanotaura kuti Jesu paakabuda mazuva 40 apera vanhu vaitaura nendimi dzakasiyana siyana. So speak nendimi dzakasiyana siyana musi wa 31 July, but remain peaceful, respect other people, do not damage property, and so forth. Because that is the only way you will be protected by the law. If you then go outside that, you get outside the protection of the law. And also understand that liberation is not a one-day event. So 31 July is part and parcel of the process, kusungano musi weworld cup takaiti yataiti yellow campaign yekuti we are giving them a yellow card. 31 July is another yellow card. Asi mubhora mune makadzi mangani? Maviri. Saka if they don't listen to the people musi wa 31 July, they must know that the red card is coming.
So enough in terms of protests. Let's look at the consequences in terms of the law. If the courts confirm your position that there has been a violation of the Constitution in terms of how K3 was amended, what's going to happen?
Right, as I say, as far as I know, there are about 7 matters before the Constitutional Court now. So the Constitutional Court will probably consolidate them. And as was explained by Professor Maduku at our presser, there will be matters that deal with the procedure, that what Parliament did was wrong, that, for instance, they are required to go through a national referendum. So that is procedural aspects. Then there are substantive aspects which may deal with the fact that the whole fact of failure to have a constitutional bill or content that you are taking away the one woman, one man, one vote substantively is unconstitutional. So those are the likely 2 areas. So the outcome will depend with where the decision of the court will lie if it agrees with the applications. If it is the procedural ones, for instance, the national referendum one, it may then mean that the court may order that, yes, you've passed, the Parliament has passed CAP 3, but the process has not yet been completed. You must complete the process by going through a national referendum. Yes. So that is one possible outcome. If it's on the substantive issues, as we've said, for instance, the violation of the rights of the people to vote for their president.
Of the Act.
Yes, under Section 67. The outcome of that would be that the whole constitutional bill itself is unconstitutional and does not even need to go to a national referendum. It is simply declared by the court to be a nullity, which means there's nothing. So it would mean that those who want to do it would have to restart afresh in a procedurally correct manner. So those are there's a third element as well where after the CAB bill was gazetted, there were some provisions that were inserted on judges and in terms of the Constitutional Court that were not in CAB 3, but were sneaked in. So that also can be procedural ones, that those ones should be taken out. So the 2 possibilities is that the entirety of CAR 3 may be declared to be a nullity and therefore not operational at law, or the court may decide that it does not even want to go there. The procedural aspects on their own were not constitutionally compliant. And as a consequence of that, in particular, the requirement for a national referendum.
What would the proponents suffer? The proponents of this law, those who have been involved in terms of making it law, what would they suffer at law?
Oh, well, at law, in terms of the law, it's a constitutional matter. So usually at constitutional matter, you don't really have cause that visit you. But the real thing that they would suffer is that they would have learned that Zimbabwe ndevan. They would have learned that the constitution of Zimbabwe was made by the people. And if you are going to change it fundamentally, you must go back to the people. That is the most important lesson. So that's what they will suffer. They will suffer political humiliation, and they will have to listen to the people of this country.
But when you also have conversations with your fellow colleagues in the academic circle, what views are coming out? What are they saying as well?
Yeah, other than for the bootlickers, there are always bootlickers. There are always some of you that in my faculty, the University of Zimbabwe, the Faculty of Law, bulk of my colleagues, in terms of the situation. And you must remember that at the University of Zimbabwe and the state universities, we are also victims of the same oppressive tendencies that we are seeing in CAR 3. We went on a strike last year, April 16, until October, where we're saying our right under Section 65 of the Constitution to a fair remuneration or wage was not being respected. You can imagine a lecturer who was earning $2,800 was reduced to earning less than $300. So we went on strike. Substantively on the issue of constitutional non-compliance. And as we speak, 4 of our leaders, the President Chamburuka, the Secretary General Makorera, the spokesperson Vengei, the organizer Tandile, were dismissed. And just this week, we're actually in the Supreme Court. So we are not just talking about theory. We are also talking about constitutional violations that have affected the academics of this country. So they understand this very well. And it is also, I believe, the same thing with the generality. And I've already talked about the legal profession. The legal profession has come out. It's rare, by the way, for the Law Society to do what it did. But it is because of the strong feelings amongst any self-respecting lawyers to accept this, because this has gone beyond your individual thing. I look at the bar, the advocates. You look at those 7 constitutional courts. Many of those very respected advocates who previously have stood as lawyers for the government, including for Cape 2, many of them are supporting the movement, the constitutional court applications. So the intellectual strata of our society is generally in support of this, other than those who, for selfish personal reasons, have done what were supporting it.
But maybe, let's go back a little bit. As Sungano Evan, when you converged, was not it maybe noble for you to engage maybe the president first and hear your views, seek audience from him, before you can then launch protests?
Yeah, remember Sungano was launched after the consultations, but we, in terms of constituents organizations, DCP, CDF and so forth, we made our position clear to Parliament. But in Swaga Costa, Uruta ora Jesus, kwa namjen, vabivake, 8 generals had a meeting with the president. These are his close buddies, the people that they executed the November 2017 coup with. They were together. They told us that they had a meeting with him too. And his response was, are we now in? What
was the meaning of that? Are we now in?
For them, for him and them, it's a game. It's not realizing that this is a fundamental issue for the people of Zimbabwe. But that's what they reported. And the report we got from Muchena, it was a public statement, was that it was clear to them after they met the president that Cape 3 was in fact his project.
So are we now in? Does it translate to you, those who are opposing the bill, and him? What's your
exactly? It became clear that he's clearly behind it. That Cape 3, so it is futile. Therefore, what you've asked for us to have, us or others to have tried to do so. There were others who tried, but they are the biggest examples. So, and they've just had Marali this past weekend. They had celebration rallies, and here's a message for the people of Zimbabwe. Masimire who is chairman of Harare, begged by Masvingo, are now saying kune Cape 4 irikuwe. Nana wikneo chivayo, Zgananda, the wealthy oligarchies who are financing this thing. They've made it clear kuti kune Cape 4. Cape 4, Mnanga Gwandi 2037, a life presidents. So this is our last chance, the people of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe. If we do not take a stand now, don't even think of 2030. They are telling you that Kurkuya Cape 4. They are coming to 2037. So for ourselves, for our children, for this country, we must make a stand.
But what is the mood maybe in the region? If you have spoken to colleagues in the region, South Africa, both Zambia, Mozambique, what are you getting from the regional, from the region in terms of their appreciation of the events that are taking place in the country, if you happen to engage them?
Yes, I mean, you check the regional power in South Africa. I think people like Ona Julius Malema, EFF, have come out strongly in terms of rejecting this. Even right-wing, groups that were terrorizing our people our people from Zimbabwe, from the region, also things. So we think that this has a resonance. You must remember that this has also happened. I mean, you look at places like Malawi, like Kenya, where similar attempts were made. And when people came out, I mean, you were saying these things don't work. People came out. And both in Kenya and in Malawi, after the people had shown their readiness to defend democracy, in both countries, the Supreme Courts actually ended up having seen, because remember, at the end of the day, my courts are they are part and parcel of the ruling class, but they play a critical role as organs of the ruling class. They are the last line to understand that if certain things are allowed, you can then end up with much more serious upheavals in society. So they will read the mood and solve. That's why it's important for people to come out. So in the region, we see that there is that. But just recently in India, when I look at social, I find it amazing actually. People who refer to my students to India, it's the cockroach movement. I don't know if you're following that. Where, the Minister of Education had arrogantly dismissed my students. The same kind of corruption that known as oligarchs happening in India, my exams. My leakages, millions of students. Also, that was university to not lecturer $300, less than a general worker. It's less than a third of poverty data. A whole professor, no about $300. We saw my students in India go, and the minister had said they are cockroaches. We are in power. They can't do anything to us. The young people of India organized themselves online. Hundreds of thousands. Just a few days ago, that minister resigned. Now, Modi, the prime minister, better be hope and pray that it won't end there. Because in a country called Bangladesh, just next, and Sri Lanka, my students had actually also came out against my quotas. In the end, the minister was thrown, the prime minister, Sheikh, was thrown out. So our people can see these things. They can see that they have power. And it is for that reason that I think you are seeing that the state is panicked. We have situation in Ambedzi, the NWG chairperson, we met South, being detained like a hardened criminal merely for exercising his constitutional rights. But what we are seeing is that instead of that deterring people, making people afraid, it has made people strong. And we're seeing even in South Africa, we are seeing solidarity with Mbedzi and so forth. So we are ready. Because we know we've done no wrong. We know that the law is on our side. And we believe that solidarity will be shown by others in the region and call upon working people, in Botswana, in Zambia, in Mozambique. The youth of Kenya have been part of the pride of Africa in the last few years. It's our struggle together, because these elites, every other day, and it's just other day, if I point Angaru State House, Swatini, ozoenda ku Tanzania, ozoenda Kenya. So if you let it happen here, please be sure just go ikoko. Or let me speak in English because they're not here.
Okay.
So this solidarity must know no border, no boundary.
Yeah.
Just like the struggle against settler colonialism in Zimbabwe, in Angola, in Mozambique, in South Africa, knew no border. The people of this region were able to unite across. So we call upon, in particular, the workers and the youth of Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, to give solidarity to the people of Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I was asking about the region's potential response to, because I wanted to find out whether you have made formal engagements with any either governments or groups within these countries towards the campaign to fight or oppose CAA?
Yes, there are going to be solidarity protests in Pretoria on 31 July. I believe in other places like London and so forth. And so those are areas where we've already heard that there are going to be solidarity protests, and we hope elsewhere. But at DCP, our constituent organizations had also already raised this issue during my days at CAP 3 with the Africa Union in terms of the commission. Mm-hmm. So that's another area.
What did it say?
Well, essentially, it was making clear that Zimbabwe was violating its obligations in terms of African conventions and treaties that govern elections, that govern democracy. So that will also be pursued. We're going to be filing those.
But Zim is a sovereign country. That's the defense you will get from those who own the CAA.
A true sovereign country, but a sovereign country that has put itself under certain treaties in terms of the continent. Saka, it puts itself under peer review. Mm-hmm. So the importance of that then is that the legitimacy. You see, they like to say they are Democrats, they are constitutionalists. So the legitimacy of that will be questioned. But at the end of the day, as we've already said, it is the people of Zimbabwe, the citizens of Zimbabwe, who must resolve this. It cannot be SADC, it cannot be AU, it cannot be the judiciary. The people have to speak for themselves. That is the lesson of history. People free themselves. Mm-hmm. So that is what we must be prepared to do. And people must also know that in any genuine struggle, there will be sacrifices, there will be casualties, but that does not stop the struggle going on. Vana Stole vakaenda, vana Chitepo vakaenda, vana Ziapapa Moyo vakaenda. It did not stop the liberation struggle. So we must know that those possibilities are there, but we carry on. You know, I look at the anti-imperialist struggle in the Middle East, where the Americans take out, the supreme leader, Khamenei, the leadership of their armed forces, their thing, cut them out. But the people are still resisting imperialism up to this day, the most powerful army in the world. I don't see why we should be.
Let's assume the protest succeeds, the courts rule in your favor, and ultimately maybe the leadership that is there would say we are resigning, we have violated the law, and we accept that we have. As Sungano Evanua, how prepared are you to form the next government?
Ubumbano, umjajate abantu, that's the Tonga version of People's Coalition. We are not a political party, right? We may have political parties that are part of us.
But this could be
like,
the result,
I'm saying like NCA. Mm-hmm. But our mandate and mission is very clear. Mm-hmm. It's a restoration of constitutional democracy by stopping CAP 3, CAR 3. That is our mandate. And that mandate, therefore, will bring in labor, the ZCTU, religious groups, churches, Islamic groups, traditional groups, students, youth groups, all those that constitute the people come together. So Sungano is not a political party. It's not purpose. Its purpose is not attainment of political power. Mm-hmm. That is the object of political parties. But what Ubumbano does, together with others, is to ensure that a fair democratic platform is created. We have had elections that were contested and clearly that by many accounts, including SADC initially, show that they were rigged and did not express the will of the people in 2018, in 2023. So
that's why CAA is coming to cure that historic electoral outcome disputes, violence, toxicity, and so on.
Exactly. Well, that's what they say. But what they are doing, in fact, is entrenching dictatorship, and they seek to cure it by a constitutional coup. You do not restored deficits and deficiencies in democracy by usurpation of the people's power. That is the antithesis of democracy. So we will help create the basis for political actors to fairly and legitimately compete for power. So we want to be very clear to the people of Zimbabwe. Our convener, Reverend Kupamtata, is a reverend. He's not a politician. Many of our leaders may have been political players. So we're very clear about that. That is why you see that we have a convener in the form of the reverend. And this is not new. In 1972, another good example for you when you talk about the people, Smith tried to play a game, what was called the PS Commission. And an inquiry was made. And the political parties of this country, civic groups, came together. ZAPU, ZANU, under what became the ANC, and under Mzolewa. And they successfully, massive protests, successfully stopped the adoption of Smith's proposals. So we have confidence in history. Those are not, I'm a revolutionary, I'm a socialist, yes. So yes, we do go for the working people assuming power, and we believe that is the only solution ultimately for the problems of society, socialism. But for this, we, the socialists, my friends, the liberal bourgeois politicians, the church, the youth, labor, rural farmers, makorokoza, vachaireva mabhazi, makombi, please, let's come together.
If you go on social media right now, you will see that there's a certain constituents that do prefer the Vice President, Constantino Chiwenga, at some point to take over the leadership of this country. We have had conversations around Razaro, Simon, we've heard about Hezekiah, Simon, all these conversations oscillating around the Vice President. When you stand there as an individual, but also as a political person, what do you make of all such conversations that will be oscillating around the Vice President?
Well, not surprising in the sense that in some ways CAA 3 and CAB 3 were also elite succession fights. So at one level, when you look at CAB 3, where you are now changing the manner in which the president is chosen, not directly by popular vote, but now through parliament. And when you look at CAA 3 in terms of postponing the elections to 2030, but now we're being told by Wanamasi Mirembo that they actually want to go to 2037. It's clear that there's a fight amongst the elites. General Chiwenga, we understand there had been a gentleman agreement when they did the coup Nana Mnangagwa in November 2017, that that's their own agreement. So I think the general must now be realizing, that is what it is. Yes, but you're right. So part of the objectives here in CAA 3 is to stop Chiwenga. Chiwenga has come out attacking the oligarchs, Suganant, and the things that they're doing. So it's to stop Anwanza and Chiwenga. It's also to stop Chamisa, because the last two elections, despite all the irregularities, the Mnangagwa has barely scraped through, and we're just assuming those are correct, proper results. And we have every reason to be suspect, because Mugabe subsequently told us that in previous elections in 2008, Tsvangirai had 70% and should have gone in, but they played in. So the fear Chamisa, representing the movement that arose from the 1997 movements, also motivates this. But these are elite fights. But we understand that at the bottom of it, CAA 3 goes beyond that. It is to ensure that the austerity agenda, the neoliberal agenda of attacking workers, attacking poor people, attacking farmers for the benefit of the rich and the few, goes without anyone questioning. Ultimately, that's what it's about. So yes, we do see, so Chiwenga supporters obviously will be also feeling hard done. But we want to be clear, we are not regents, we are not pawns for Chiwenga. As I say, that's their own elite succession fight. What we are for is a democratic constitutional dispensation. When we started fighting at the end of the 1990s, we were fighting for democracy, we were fighting for a people-driven constitution. A part of that product was the 2013 constitution. In fact, people like myself, Maduku, in NCA, in ISO and so forth, we actually campaigned against the 2013 constitution on the basis that it did not go far enough. But it still reflected major gains. So for those reasons, the message to the people of Zimbabwe, this is not about elites succeeding one another and giving each other power. This is about defending the goals and aspirations of the anti-colonial liberation war. The goals and aspirations of the liberation war was full democracy. And full democracy means that the leaders of your society are directly elected by your people. We went to war for this. They like to compare with South Africa to say in South Africa, parliament elects. But you know why South Africa, the president is not elected by the people? It is because South Africa did not have the same full-blood liberation war that we had here. And in order to protect the gains of apartheid, Mabunu did not want a president who would be elected by the people. They wanted a president who would be elected in parliament so that there can be deals amongst elites. So South Africa was a half-complete revolution. If you go to countries in this region where there were serious liberation wars, where thousands died, you go to Mozambique, you go to Angola, all the presidents are elected by the people. So we'll be clear, I think, and people, we also have to learn from history. We cannot, the people must control this process. We don't want another November 2017, where a section of ZANU-PF, including the military, said they were with the people. Then once Mugabe had been removed, they turn around, what is right? So we can't have, we certainly from our position in the ISO and so forth, we are very clear that this movement must be controlled by the people. They must not put it in the hands of any savior, military or otherwise. The people are their own liberators.
I also want you to comment, Comrade Munye, on the narrative, Chakanirwa Chunich. And we have seen on social media people labeling or calling Nelson Chamisa a sellout, that he was co-opted somehow to make sure that he demotivate people, discourage people from being militant or taking to the streets, so to say. With regards to the Cat3, when you stand there as an individual, what do you say?
Yeah, Chamisa is a responsibility. Those statements that you get, the disappointments, the frustrations, arise from the fact that he is the successor of Kunatsvangirai. So the 2 million votes that he got in 2018, 2023 are not so much about Chamisa, about CCC. They are a legacy of the movement that arose from the general strikes and stairways by workers, by students in Zimbabwe in 1998, which led to MDC. So he was seen, and he's seen as the logical successor to that. That is what was behind him. So the disappointment, therefore, is when he has taken pacifist contradictory positions. People want to see a fight back. People do not want to see accommodation with the regime. So, for instance, so he has tended to show those characteristics. 2023, he had promised people that, this time we're going to fight and there's no other way. And when it was lost, he appeals to SADC and stops there. People like Timber were arrested ahead of that SADC thing. So there's disappointment. And even when resolution number 1 was passed, and we had a press conference at SAPES, Professor Ibo Mandaza's place. You remember the bombings there. Chamisa comes out and he says, well, there's no constitution to defend. We have engaged him, and I think he has also read the mood. And I think eventually he changed his position, and which I think is positive in the sense that he then came out denouncing Cap 3. And indeed, when we went to the City Sports Center, during the consultations, where ZANU-PF bussed thousands of people. When we said there, I think Maduku spoke about it in one of the interviews, I think probably with you. Chamisa's people like Anangadzore and others, were with us, together, surrounded by multitudes, of hostile persons that had been brought in. So the message, Guna Nelson, is that the same thing applies now. People need to come together and we need to fight together. And to understand that there is no one person, anofan wakuita a messiah, or think that he is the be and end of all. We can only fight this together, Tine Sungano, Umbano. So he's an important player in the democratic thing, but we need his voice to join the voice of others. So we look forward that Chamisa and those who support him, on the ground already, many of his supporters are part of this fight, but they require a clear message from the likes of their leaders like Chamisa, they are part and parcel of this fight. So you said that yet at Nakwana, yes, people like Chamisa and others who are not yet part of this, let us fight together. Because when we do that, that is the only way that we will be able to ensure that we defend democracy and stop the descent into fascism that this country is going to.
Comrade Munya, we have spoken at length.
Yeah.
What is your parting shots to the people of Zimbabwe who have been watching this conversation from the time we started?
It's not a done deal. The people of Zimbabwe, you have the power. July 31, come and speak. Speak peacefully, speak non-violently, but speak firmly. And whatever the outcome of July 31, the struggle continues until Car3 falls, until dictatorship and autocracy that is being done in this country is stopped. These protests are constitutional. These protests are within the law, and you have the power. The history of Africa shows us that united, the people have the power and shall succeed. See you July 31.
Thank you so much, comrade.
Thank you.